Hello, I'm Vivian. I wanted to share with you my brain. Yes. This is a photo album. I picked it up at a thrift store. And I like albums like this, but any sort of albums, those little dollar ones will work, the little brag books. But this is made for 3.5 by 5 photos. Then I'm using 3.5 by 5 index cards, which fits perfectly. So it's got mornings, middays, and evenings, and then the days of the week. So I try to do a list of chores, and then these are the monthly things that I try to do. Some things are done twice a year, 3 times a year, whatever. And I need this because I don't always follow this religiously. I don't. Things will vary. I'll clean the toilets when they need cleaning, but it's nice to keep it on schedule. And when's the last time I really gave it a good cleaning? It'll be, it's like, oh yeah, I need to do that on such and such day. And it'll vary, but I don't always have to, sometimes I let things go. But this is the important side. So I've got this verse in Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 through 8, King James. It's a be careful, anxious. But their words have changed, meanings have changed. When they talk about someone who's full of care, that start talking about an anxious person back then. Not a careful person who's safety conscious. Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God, and the peace of God, which passes all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue and if there be any praise, think on these things. In other words, don't focus on bad stuff. And then I've covered up the names. And the first one on the list is my husband. And I write down something very specific and also whatever comes to my heart at that time. And then for our children, including our son-in-law. He's one of our kids now. Even if something happens to their marriage, he's part of our family forever. And we've told him that. Grandkids. My mother-in-law, then my brother, my sisters, my little brother, just going down their age. And if I know something specific, I'll write it down. And then always with your pastors and their families. And then specific requests. I don't always write it down in here. I may also put it in my journal. But it reminds me right here of anyone who's asked me recently for specific prayer requests. That they're going through something. And down here, the last card are people who's recently passed, like in the past year or so. And I'm not praying for them. I'm praying for their loved ones. And it just helps me to not forget. And it takes, I call this, part of my brain. I've got some other things I use to track information and things I need to do and accomplish. But this is my daily stuff, and I'll use this to write down what I used to do, the to-do list, instead of the done list that I talk about. But this, it doesn't happen often, but I think a lot of times, sometimes we get too busy, and I know I do. And I was like, who do I pray for? What do I pray? And just like, oh, yeah, here's a whole list. And it doesn't take long. And to focus on the good, just bless them, protect them, help them, heal them. And writing down the ones, the families of these loved ones, just because a year has passed doesn't mean. There's a couple of anniversaries of 2 friends that passed away last year coming up next month. Their spouses, a year, everything's fine now. It doesn't work like that. Still praying for them, still letting them, just, hey, how you doing? So this is my brain. What do you think? This helps me schedule my household chores on this side, and this side, the spiritual stuff. And that just kind of helps me go, okay, I don't need to have that constantly on my mind. It's down here, it's written, and it works for me. I really like this. And I had another one that was, and I had prayer written on it and had all sorts of information on that. And it just goes through phases. And I think it's important that we all come up with something that takes some of the stress off. What am I forgetting? And having a place to keep that information, especially if something's going on, and going back and going, oh, that's really neat how that prayer got answered, how that person came through the situation. So it's a good way to track that as well. So be a blessing and be blessed. Have a great Valentine's.